I like how they tell us that now.
I know, it's great. And you have to actively hit continue to,
Yes, you do.
Do you guys have to hit continue?
yes. I
You
had
did,
to,
okay.
Yep.
Neat.
Yeah, I think it's a good, that's a kind of a good policy.
It's permission based that way. Yes.
and it gives you an out if you come on and go, oh my God, I don't like these guys at all. Like you just like, no, I'm not going to continue. Oops, hit the wrong button.
Okay, so far we're in the clear with that. So far. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Chris Coward, and I'm a co-creator with Jeff Kaplan here, my colleague with HabitChange Coach Training. And we have been around for a long time and a little dormant in terms of our offerings of training people to become ICF credentialed coaches at the professional certified coach level. And both of us do a lot of things in the coaching industry because we absolutely love it, and including my work with Val, who you guys all know, with Apollo Health, which is a brain health startup company. And we've been doing these monthly webinars, and they're free, and they're usually on the same Friday of the month. And we'll talk next month will be a different Friday, but generally the same. And it's just really an opportunity to share just one little piece of our HabitChange coaching model. And today's is one of the 7 barriers to change that Jeff gets the credit for this creation. And this one is lack of motivation. If you haven't been on with us before or haven't been on our mailing list, etc., I guess you all are going to be now. We have other recordings of other barriers to change. And so we won't go through them now, and you can catch up as needed. And there's more to do. There's a few more left, and we're going to cover those, in future months. And I'll do some announcements at the end. Jeff, do you want to say anything as we open before we jump in?
Yeah, sure. So as Chris said, I mean, her and I know each other. We were actually quickly trying to guess how long we knew each other earlier before you guys got on.
Wow.
I can't remember what we came up with, but
2005.
Okay, since 2005. And so clearly we still like each other, and spent a lot of blood, sweat, and tears around HabitChange, right? Creating curriculum, delivering services, programs, things like that. So needless to say, it's always a joy. When I am not working with Chris on HabitChange stuff, I do executive leadership coaching, I do team coaching, and then leadership coaching, typically for like EVP on up to C-suite. And it is just a lovely Friday. It's hot and sweaty here in Philadelphia, but it's still lovely. Last thing I'll say is, I'm working. The model that we use for HabitChange, for the curriculum, including this. I wrote a book. I'm about 2/3 of the way through writing a second edition, which is for professionals. So that's also been taking a chunk of my time. So with that, I hand it back to you.
All right. So lack of motivation. So as I was mentioning in our model, there's a lot of barriers to change. And what we mean by that, it just simply is when you're imagining yourself trying to make some kind of habit change, whether it's something in the area of nutrition, or getting a meditation practice started or more consistent, or adding time to it, whatever that is for you. It's infinite amount of types of changes we can make, or stopping something potentially too. Things can get in the way of making it like a truly something that is as simple as brushing your teeth. It is hard to make these kind of changes, and there's a lot of reasons for that we won't go deep into now. But with lack of motivation, like all our barriers to change, there's a feeling associated that gives you the signal that this particular barrier is at play. And can anyone guess what that feeling is that's associated with when you're experiencing a lack of motivation? Anyone have an idea about that?
I do.
I know it's kind of cheating.
not
if
saying
it's- Yeah, I kind of think Val knows too. You guys want to take a stab, Jennifer and Jill? No? All right. I won't push you.
I'll take a stab.
Okay.
Maybe something like a hopelessness, like what difference does it make?
Yeah, definitely. And that to me is like almost another way of saying the word that I was going to say, which is apathy.
Mm.
But same idea for sure. Yeah, good job. I knew you were going to be right before you even said it somehow. Intuition. So when you're feeling that apathy, and I mean, I have so many personal examples that I won't bore you with, but I'll give you one. So the brain health company that Val and I work with, Apollo Health, there's to follow the program for optimal brain health, which also includes for many people reversing their Alzheimer's and cognitive impairment and preventing it. It involves this particular eating plan that we call Keto Flex 12-3. And without going into details around it, it's not that easy to follow. Or at least if you're used to maybe the standard American diet, it's definitely a switch from that. And so for me, I carry one copy of the gene, so I have some risk factors. My mother, has Alzheimer's. So there are certainly some reasons why I should pretty consistently follow this. And yet I have times where I just don't feel like it. I'm not motivated. I have that feeling of apathy. And sometimes it just comes from, well, Jesus, I'm really healthy. I don't have symptoms. Do I have to start now? I'm in a social situation that, I'm communing with friends and I'm doing something totally different. I'm going to get a lot of questions. That particular last thing I just said is not necessarily apathy. That's something else. So that's kind of an example for me where this comes up, and I am going to get into how to address this and work through it, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. I'm going to keep sort of unfolding the problem first. Do you guys have any examples for yourselves where this might come up?
Just all the time.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, you mean you're human?
Yes.
Yeah.
Putting my
try
feet
to
on the
be.
floor, getting out of bed.
I try to be, human.
Yeah. I'm always amazed on days when I feel extremely motivated. And I'm like, I don't know where that's coming from, but I'm rolling with it and getting as much done as possible because I know by tomorrow I'll be like, it can wait. I have my Scarlett O'Hara moments and I'm like, tomorrow's another day. And just,
Yeah.
it's not, that's how important is it? Oh, it's not really that important,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it. I'll get it done. And either I wake up another day and feel motivated, or I have some other external factor, like someone's coming to my house. So now I really have to go and tidy up the table so we have a place to eat dinner. Why did I invite them?
Nothing like a deadline. Our house has never been cleaner when we have getting ready for a party and ending it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, and you guys are giving great examples of what happens so easily, and that we're almost, there's a tendency to expect it, to expect that we're going to have motivation and rely on it to get something hard done in terms of our change. And, the research all kind of points to that it isn't reliable. Motivation waxes and wanes. And if that's what you're depending on, gosh, it's going to be really, really hard. And by the way, just a quick aside, we did another one of these webinars on small steps, which is part of our habit change process as well. And that is one of the reasons, one of the antidotes to this is if the step is so small that you really don't have to rely on motivation, that it's going to help you be more successful towards your goals. I don't know, Jeff, do you have an example for yourself?
I do. So, so generally throughout my life, I've eaten healthier than not healthy, with some definite exceptions. Meaning that I don't always eat healthy, but the balance has generally worked for me. And I have generally exercised since I was 12. That said, in 2020, actually April, the end of April 2020, right, hard COVID, I was in the hospital. I had an appendectomy, right? So I was in the hospital for a few days. I walked out having lost, all like the muscle that I had. I lost a lot of weight. And what I was supposed to do was eat like lots of like pasta and breads and, all these like white flour kind of stuff, which I did and really enjoyed. And and so now I now have, I think up about 10 or 12 pounds that I still need I need to lose again. And I have just absolutely not been motivated to do that. Like I keep trying to find the workaround. Like the big thing about motivation is like, are you willing to sacrifice something in order to achieve what you want? I'm working out, but I keep the way that I've been managing my intake is like for 15 plus years, I count calories, which is really obnoxious, like, after doing it for so long. And I know it's a really quick way to achieve my goal, but I refuse to do it. So I keep thinking I'm going to, get it some other way, but it hasn't happened yet. So
Yeah,
so,
even Jeff is human too. Nice.
yes.
So, I mentioned just briefly that if we were all to share like our concrete examples of lack of motivation, and we're listening to each other, we're realizing that there may be more feelings involved that identify other barriers other than lack of motivation. So like for my example, and I'm saying that to say that there could be one or more other barriers at play for your reason why you're struggling with your change. And so for me, well, gosh, I just came back from this vacation, and if I stick with that KetoFlex example, it's very unsettling not being at home, not cooking for myself regularly in my kitchen with all my cool ingredients that help me, that I love to, and just being on the road and, well, gosh, being camping in the wilderness with, all our supplies being rafted in, things like that, things that create a real difference, doing my best. But that's not a lack of motivation. That's an environmental situation. The environment is not set up to make it easy to do what I want to do. So you may notice that too. So I don't want anyone to feel like kind of stuck on, well, I'm feeling apathetic and I'm feeling some kind of values conflict, as well, or whatever that is for you. Another point about motivation is, Jeff said this earlier, and the question to ask yourself for how this shows up is, am I willing to do the potentially hard work and the sacrifice that's necessary to reach my goal or objective? And sometimes the answer is just no. It's just no. And what I want to say to that is accept that. And in that moment, if that is the feeling for you and it just doesn't fit, the tendency really, we notice this when we're coaching people, is to beat ourselves up, to go towards that should. Oh man, I do want this. I should be able to do this. I should, be able to make these sacrifices. And we can really go down a dark hole and not extend compassion for ourselves. And you guys all know Valerie, she's pretty steeped in the work around mindfulness-based self-compassion. And so that's something to look at around this if these things are showing up and you're shooting, on yourself. There's times when there's some pressure from someone that you love in your life that wants you to make this change more than you want it for yourself. And that's something to look at too. So I may not want to do it, but someone who really cares about me and thinks that, it'll be so much better for me to do blank, maybe nagging or lovingly trying to support and make that happen. That's really something to pay attention to as well, and have those tough conversations and hold your ground on where you are. Sometimes the lack of motivation can be just from simply timing, that it's just the timing isn't right. Valerie and I are talking about starting in our work with the Brain Health Company, working with another Native American tribe, and who has funding to get started on a program in October, and or would start in like November or something. And we just talked to the nutritionists, and we're all like, no, they can do their lab work in December. We're starting in January, because that's crazy timing for them to manage this program through the holidays. It's setting them up. You talk about, they may be motivated on some front, but it won't be lasting. So something will get in the way. What I'm looking at my notes here real quick. I just make sure I don't miss anything.
While you're looking at that, can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
You had mentioned values conflict, and something that came up to me, which, I mean, it's inherent. It's part of the conversations that Chris and I always have, but I actually never sort of thought of it this way. And I hope, I just wrote it down for the future. But, values conflict and motivation often go together, and values is one way to get out of a stuckness around motivation. And the question to ask, either you as a coach for your client or you for yourself, is like, okay, this is what I want. This is the sacrifice that's needed to get there. I'm not willing to make this sacrifice. So the question to ask is, what do I want more than that sacrifice that I'm not willing to make? And if you can identify that one question can help you and your clients get unstuck.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point.
So anyway.
I realized in preparing for this, we've been teaching this for a long time, but it's always good to review and have almost a beginner's mind about it too.
Yeah.
Is that I was just seeing a lot of synergy, not necessarily in a good way, of all the barriers to change, and how they really can sort of work together. And you're talking about leveraging that to get out of the problematic part of it, which is really cool. I was seeing all the ways that they sort of step on each other and intertwine, and talk us, give us many reasons not to change.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like if that door is so solidly shut, because, perhaps because through repeated attempts, failure, look for another door.
Yeah.
Right. To get in.
Well,
Yeah.
I love that question so much too, because actually comparing those things, sometimes makes you realize. Sometimes I have people weigh things in their hands, like I'll have them actually put their hands out, and weigh things.
Right.
And when you think about it, some of the reasons that you can come up with that are more important, that are truly more important for you at the moment, when you even verbalize them, you think that can't be the truth. Right. Like really, it can't be, as I would say, another episode of Downton Abbey.
Yes. Yeah.
And left, you know what I mean? So it truly is really, it does help to really bring that to the fore and get that idea of, okay, this is what you're really talking about, right? It's not this amorphous thing that's floating around. You're going, what's really more important to me is staying in bed or whatever. So I love that question.
Yeah. And what a gift too, right? As a coach, or just even as a, partner, like holding this space and basically just putting up from like, this is what you're saying, like, having that non-judging observer, and then having that, giving voice to what is there, right? It's just amazing how sometimes that can be enough to unstuck someone.
Yeah. And it's another example of mindfulness, which flows through all of this. And of all these webinars we've been doing, I don't remember when we started, Jeff, I think this is our 7th month. We haven't dedicated a full one to mindfulness, which is really a core of our program. So we'll be talking to Val about that, and you guys can come back on once we schedule that. A couple other things, like to work through this barrier as it shows up. And this is a little bit related to Jeff's insight, and a little bit different too, but we ask ourselves and our clients, well, okay, I'm not motivated to do this. What are you motivated to do? Like, is there some small aspect of it Is it a complete pivot that you're willing to do? Just asking that question keeps you in movement towards something that you want, and that in itself can be so empowering and feel good. So that's one thing. Ask that question, like what are you motivated to do, if you're coaching or to yourself. I mentioned the small step piece. Huge. Small, huge. But like break it down, make it so small that you just can't fail. So I was on a quest to make sure I was meditating daily versus 3 days a week or whatever. And I realized, like, and I was going for these 20 minutes. I had to do 20 minutes, or if I didn't have 20 minutes, I wasn't doing it at all. And so it was a real thing. And I realized, like, well, wait a second. And then I was like, well, I'm not motivated. Okay, so what am I motivated to do? I can do 5 minutes. I'm motivated to do 5 minutes a day. And if I do more, excellent. And even if I was about to go to bed, I could still do 5 minutes. And so that really chunking down into something small. And for some people, that 5 minutes is a lot for a lot of my clients. I would tell them 1 minute or 30 seconds or something even smaller. So that's all very relative. So I don't want you to get stuck on my timing. Another thing to look at is to reconnect with your why. What got you prompted to try to make this change in the first place? What's it connected to that's bigger than just the darn thing itself? And we've had a webinar on your why as well. So that's just something to look at too. If you're not clear on that, doing that exploration, talking it out maybe with somebody, or writing it out, or looking at this vision for your life and your purpose and things like that. We talked about mindfulness as well. Yeah, so those are kind of the main tips to work with for yourselves, and if you're coaching with your client. Does anyone want to add anything or comment at this point?
As you're thinking, one comment, just when you're talking about small steps, it's so important, particularly when you think about your clients, but also yourself, to just appreciate the value of, say, 5 minutes versus 20 minutes of meditation, right? Because if you're committing to something smaller, right, there's a tendency to just say, well, what the heck good is that, right? And and I think we said this in the small steps one, but like, the way I think about it is, if you're going in the wrong direction, it's like, a huge wave in an ocean is going the wrong direction, right? So what's, one more whatever, like, if it's eating, like, what's, one more bag of chips or whatever. But like, but when you move even in such a small way and in the right way, you're literally shifting the direction of the wave in the other direction. And that is really impactful. But you're doing it in such a way that the ego, which is that's what gets in the way, the part of you that wants to stay exactly where you are because it knows, this is who I am, don't change it. It doesn't appreciate the impact, which is why you have a tendency to discount the impact, right? And so anyway, so it's just, I just think it's such a key point when it comes to that. The 30 seconds is so valuable. The 1 minute, whatever it is so valuable. So just really give yourself permission to just go in the right direction. So.
Yeah, beautiful. So before we pivot to me asking if there's who wants to volunteer or to be my coachee for just a fun coaching exchange. Does anyone have any questions about what I just shared? And even too, like, if there's a new awareness that you're taking away or something, yeah, please put it out there. And Jill, I can't see you. I'm assuming you're tracking.
Along with whatever's
Maybe.
going on in your household there.
Oh, hello. And you're muted.
And you're muted, but your voice and your smile is great.
I know.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's a little quieter now, so I'll turn the camera back on. Sorry. Yes, I've been here the whole time.
At the quiet farmhouse in Iowa cabin.
I've got some relatives in, so sometimes it's really quiet and sometimes it's a crazy house.
Yeah, I've just went through that myself. We said goodbye finally at like 11. Yeah, anything popping up for you?
No, these are all just good reminders, really. I did the coaching class with Val. I haven't been coaching really much since then. But I noticed, I mean, the motivation thing really speaks to me because it ebbs and flows.
Yeah,
And in theory, I'm okay for my own personal self. I'm okay with that. But would I know how to help someone else through that? That's
Right.
why I'm here. Yeah.
beautiful. Good. Oh, you went to FMCA?
Yes.
Yeah, we were in the same cohort.
Nice.
Yeah, we were in the same group.
Good, good.
Wonderful.
Well, good. So is anyone have a motivational coaching challenge right now? Doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be an 8 to 10 issue. It could be even like a 3 or a 4 or 5. We'll spend, maybe 15 minutes coaching together. And even if you're not the coachee, typically people just get a lot out of it and can resonate with whatever's going on for the other person.
I mean, I can if no one else wants to, but I don't have to be the coachee.
I
Jenny,
mean,
you're
I'm
welcome.
struggling a little bit right now trying to keep the motivation. Like I've been kind of trying to get my little house organized because I know that when my space is decluttered, that I'm much calmer, I can focus better. I function okay in some chaos, but not
Well,
as well as I used to.
Let me interrupt you just to say you're on. This is perfect. And full disclosure, I'm going to be self-managing during this whole conversation because I have this. One might say that I may not be the best coach for you, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Or you're the perfect coach for her.
Or maybe, yeah, we'll find out, right? So Jen, thank you for volunteering. And
Did I volunteer? No.
yes, you
Yes, I did.
You have like it's such a great coaching topic.
Yeah.
So from knowing that we have 15 minutes, what would you like to take away around this? I heard a little bit from you.
I guess I still struggle with I've always been a procrastinator my whole life, like down to the wire. I'm like, oh, do I have a test tomorrow? Okay, I'm going to study now. And that had always kind of worked for me. But as I got older, I put that procrastination into way too much stuff and it doesn't work for me. So how, breaking that habit and changing that habit into like, oh, I'm procrastinating. Well, what can I do to kind of get out of that procrastination? It's almost like a slump, it's just kind of put it off. And because part of me knows that once that deadline is really approaching, I'll get it done. Like I always get it done, but I also don't like the pressure, and it's all internal pressure. There's nobody else pressuring me to do these things. So just trying to figure a workaround and how to, a perfect example of trying to get my space organized. I took a class with Val, Mindful Decluttering, and one of our tasks was to spend 10 minutes a day on one flat surface that's covered and work on that till it's empty. And I was able to do that a few years ago. And now I use my dining room table. I'd rather sit at that as set up as kind of my office. instead of sitting in the living room where I just want to be the relaxing space and to just kind of veg out. I have, I made sure I have this little like movable cart that all of my office stuff, because my house is very small, so I don't have a dedicated office space, that will fit on there, that if I need to and I have people over, I can roll it into the pantry or roll it into the guest room so it's out of the way. But I can never seem to get my dining room table beyond half clean. It's always, that's clean enough. I'll get to that later. This is enough for now because I only need this much space. And then I get into that negative thought process and I start beating myself up. I'm like, you made it this far, just do it. And I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
and it's really starting to irk me.
Mhm.
And yet being irked at myself still isn't pushing me to do
So-
that extra
So,
bit.
John, I'm hearing a few things here. So before we go too much farther, I want to kind of help dial it in with you. So one is this sort of self-acknowledged behavior of procrastination, which has served you back in the day, and now is you're not loving it as much. It's not working for you as much. So that's kind of a general thing, probably going to be applied to a couple different bunch of areas of your life. And then there's this very practical thing around the decluttering, and I'm almost seeing them as two different paths that we could go down. What would serve you the best in our time today to dig into more?
I think the decluttering and kind of trying to eliminate that chaos.
Okay. Yeah. And so if you were to really just envision out having gotten this to the place that you want to be with it, decluttered, give me what that, are you a visual thinker or learner, or
Yeah, a bit of both.
what's the other one?
Like I'm a learn by doing, but also a visual learner.
Great. Let's combine those. As you imagine yourself doing this thing of decluttering to lead to a decluttered space that you can absolutely visualize, describe that for me.
So I know that as I'm doing it, I get a sense of accomplishment. And why I kind of feel motivated and energized to do it. At the same time, I can feel my anxiety dropping away. And as things get tidier and a place for, I find places for stuff and I actually throw things out now. It kind of gives me that sense of calm and that sense of order. And when I have those places, when the space is to where I want it to be, then I feel that my motivation isn't so waxing and waning. It stays a little more steady because it's a lot easier to be able to just sit down at that place and do the work that I need to do.
Mm-hmm. What does that dining room table look like in its ideal decluttered state?
In its ideal decluttered state, to have nothing on it but like the little centerpiece thing
Mm-hmm.
that has a plant in it right now.
Okay, that's beautiful.
It's half dead, but it's there.
That's another coaching session. Plant revival.
I'm a gardener too, so that's really sad.
Yeah. So I'm really, you named a lot of like internal state feelings that are good when like I was hearing calm and the motivation thing, we'll put that over here for now because I know it's part of this, but and so I really connected with that when you said it, that there's definitely, it feels good to just put it so simply, to be in action around it, because you were talking about the process, even you start feeling better, your anxiety lowers, and then the result, of course, as well. What do you think the biggest thing, let's even maybe just stick with this example of the table. What's the biggest thing for you that's getting in the way?
I, it's, I'm gonna say fear, and I think it's because when things are chaotic, I can use that as an excuse, or like there's no place for me to sit and work and finish this project, and it's just too much for me right now. It can wait, and it's part of my, kind of not pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and it, because I have this, it's smaller now, but there's that fear of, well, if I do sit down and do this project, or if I do sit down and finish this course, what if I fail? What if the project falls apart? Like, what if the glue doesn't hold? But if my space is too cluttered and chaotic, then I can't do those. And if I can't do them, then I can't fail. And then if I can't fail and there's no reason to fail, I don't have any reason to be afraid.
Wow, you are very self-aware. That was an amazing insight and connection you just made that took this deeper. I got this almost image of a protective coat that,
Yeah, pretty
that
much.
the clutter has, like, hey, if I have this coat on, no one's gonna, I don't have to
Yep.
worry about failing.
And it's, and it's kind of like having the house being cluttered. I'm like, well, I'd like to have people over occasionally, but if my house is clean all the time, then they'd be welcome all the time, or they'd feel like if I can't control that. But if my house is cluttered, then I won't invite anybody. Then nobody ever thinks of coming over, and I can keep myself in my protective bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really trying to burst it. You can ask Val. Val can vouch for me.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So it's even just, for my own internal fears of setting, like, have I set myself up to not do as well as I want to do, or so
so it's occurring to me that there's, again, a couple different paths we could go down. With this awareness that you just stated, you've given a reason for the procrastination around the decluttering that feels like it's got a lot of juice around it, around that. And yet I'm also aware of time.
Yeah.
And so what is your sense of knowing we have, I don't know, like 7 minutes left ish. What would be the best path for us to go down right now to get to the outcome you want for this mini coaching session?
I'm not really sure, because I think that any of the paths will kind of all converge into that ultimate outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like I've put a whole lot of information out there, so I'm not even sure what path I'm on it.
I like that sense of converging, and it is all intertwined, it sounds like. What do you feel like needs to be resolved to go back to taking these learnings you got from Val's class, what we talked about today around some motivation strategies? What would be helpful there?
I think if I go back to maybe setting my timer and just saying, okay, this is the area I'm going to work on for today, kind of like you were talking about with meditation, because I know I've done that with meditation, where I'm like, just start with a minute and do it whenever you feel like it. And so I think if I do that and stick to it, like set it in my phone, so every day at 2:00 an alarm goes off and I know to set my timer for 20 minutes, and I work on that space.
Mm-hmm.
And just that 20 minutes, and then walk away from it. Even if I feel motivated to keep doing, because I think sometimes I kind of snowball myself into like, oh yes, I get like kind of frenzy, I'm gonna get it all done. And then I get, then something else looks worse. And then the process begins again. If it's, I don't know, I don't know how to describe that otherwise, but I think if I kind of, schedule out a chunk of time, say I'm going to work on, going through all the bills that are sitting on the table. I'm like, that's today's task, and just getting that done whatever I can do in that 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hearing just really having a planful boundary around that, that even if you do start getting momentum, you're still gonna just kind of hold that 20. And that sounds like a really good strategy. As you imagine yourself doing this consistently, like you're talking about, what comes up? What's the feeling for you?
I can already project that feeling of calm and the lessening of my anxiety around these tasks that I have to do. Because I've done it, it's one of those, I've done it before, I know I can do it.
Yeah.
So I just have to do it and be consistent.
Yeah, and you actually don't have to, by the way. Just noticing language here.
Yeah, I know. I just talked to my friends about that. I'm like, well, do you have to? I want to do it. I want to be like, oh, good. Here's my 20 minutes. I want to get that corner table, that
Mhm.
corner cleaned up. I want to get those books, organized and put back on the shelf.
Yeah, so it's just 20 minutes, and I'm just going to push in a little bit just to test it with you, because sometimes people get ambitious, and is 20 minutes feeling like consistently doable for you, or do you want to bring it a little smaller?
I can do 20 minutes.
Okay, all right. So one last thing that's just coming up for me around this is because you did share that fear part, and you didn't go there when you imagined yourself doing these 20 minutes. And so I'm just wondering where that is for you.
I think the taking the 20-minute blocks of tidying time or whatever, I'll make up a name for it, just to be like, it's my tidying time and I do this. Keeping it kind of blocked out. I don't go right to the like, okay, I have this clean surface, now I can sit down and work. Like I don't go all the way to the end product, which is the part where my fear comes in. Like if I sit down and finish that course, what if I don't do well? What if I, so it's just, if I kind of compartment, like we're just working on clearing the table, to clear the table, to declutter.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't put that big goal at the end, like if the goal can just be, get the table clean, keep it organized. Keep the credenza organized, like you have a bin for your gloves, have a bin for your mail, and keep it that way.
It's 20 minutes at a time.
Then I think that kind of lessens the fear, because I'm not thinking, because another issue I have is like projecting and thinking too far to the end, and then that kind of ramps up the anxiety. So if I just go, okay, we're just going to work on this 2x2 foot space today, and do what I can, and that'll be great, and then go do something else.
I had this this metaphor that you might have already heard, and I don't know who it's from, maybe this guy Jack Canfield, but something about like you're driving in the woods and there's no external lights except for your headlights, so you can only see like 10 feet. So you drive that 10 feet because it's illuminated, and then you get to the next 10 feet and so on. It's reminded me of that, because you don't really see your destination, but you can see the next 10 feet. Is that
right? Yeah, it's like, yes, because I'm like, I know where I can look at the map beforehand and say, now, like use your drive through the woods. I'm like, I know I can look at the map and say, this is where I'm headed, but I don't need to focus on that endpoint the whole way. I can just go that little bit and, look out for deer and look out for bears, and, and just kind of, take that time to just kind of enjoy that 10 feet of space, and like, okay, that was good. Look what I did in that 10 feet of, in that space, and look at this next little bit that I can do. And then those little bits of accomplishment, even though I've kind of set them in their little cubes, they kind of build. So then like when I do get to that final thing, it's like, look what I did.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted. And I got here in a way that worked for me.
Jen, So we're gonna wrap up in a minute, and just a question for you about what are you taking away from our time today?
Um, just kind of, reminders of it's and allow it and remembering to allow myself, like, it's okay that I don't get everything done in one fell swoop. It's okay to take little chunks and eat away at it, and that I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that struggles with these little motivational issues.
You know, you are not. Yeah.
And it's like, and I know that, but every now and again, it's nice to hear strangers go, well, like, me too. Okay, it's not just me. I'm not the crazy one in the room. It's right, guys.
I'm hearing you saying, like, it's okay if I do it this way. It's okay if I do this. And then finally, I'm okay. I'm normal. And
Yeah.
my process. Yeah. Well, beautiful. And is there anything just to go a little deeper on the support part for you to make this step that you said happen? What support do you need or have to be consistent with that 20 minutes a day?
Yeah, I have a friend who's kind of my unofficial adult, who is kind of my accountability person.
Mhm.
And we check in with each other almost daily. So when I tell her this is my new thing, she'll be checking in every day, like, how's that decluttering going? Did you do your 20
beautiful.
minutes yet? She's
Yeah.
a teacher, so I have to avoid the teacher voice and like do my homework. So
Good.
yeah. So I'm lucky that way. I have a really good support system for all sorts of things.
Well, thank you, Jen, for volunteering for this. It was a beautiful example.
Thank you.
And again, I just really, really acknowledge your understanding of yourself. I mean, it's clear that you've done some reflection and some work on this to create some insights that just continue to move the needle for you. So I'm confident that you are going to get there.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Let's maybe talk about the little coaching for a second.
Yeah, so let's open it up. So I'd like to ask the others in the room that have been holding the space very well, I might add, what did you notice? So just in terms of coaching skill, like process, coaching skills, or what showed up, or, what struck you? And this is where you can unmute yourselves. Valerie?
Well, as always, I'm used to seeing Chris coach, but and knowing Jen, but
Getting old, isn't it?
pardon me?
It's getting old, isn't it?
Yeah. But that idea of that you have to you need to surf, you need to acknowledge where the client is, right? And you need to kind of surf the energy that's taking place. And the thing that I really loved, that I think we often forget, is that Chris kept on asking Jen where she wanted to go, and kept on saying, all right, here's where these things could diverge. And so to keep it small and doable, where do you want to take it? Not like, I think it should go here, but where do you want to go with it?
Yeah, that's great. And never making an assumption about that.
Right. Yeah.
Great.
And sometimes that's really hard to do when we're coaching.
Yeah.
That can feel hard to do. Like, that's such a self-management piece.
Yeah, because remember, Chris has lots of ideas about what needs to happen around decluttering.
Oh yeah, and I'm not doing shit of them in my
Exactly.
Right. Well, and also the fact that like, Chris didn't let the fact that maybe she was doing some self-management get in the way of anything. It was all about Jen.
Right.
Yeah.
So that that was another big,
yes.
big piece.
Including like the coach not thinking like, oh, I want to say the perfect question, ask the perfect question,
right.
or look good, or uh-oh, ain't none of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's not about us. Right?
Yeah, it was like a nice conversation without, I didn't feel any judgment from you, a little bit from myself. Like, am I oversharing? Is that too much? Now I've lost myself, but it's okay. But it was very comfortable. And yeah, it was a nice conversation, but it was nice that it was like, what do I want? Like, what do I need to get from this? And it didn't feel selfish at all to accept that, and kind of like, that's a good feeling to just be like, yes, this is about me right now, and it's allowed to be about me.
Yeah. So Jen, when you remember that moment, like, God, am I sharing too? Like that party that stepped out was observing.
Yeah.
Do you remember what Chris said, sort of right around that time or right after, to help move it along?
Not really, because that was kind of a constant dialogue in my head. Like, was that too much? And it's just kind of like, oh, well, I've put it out there now, and we'll just, and I think maybe the part where it was like, well, these could all kind of go in different places. And then, kind of put together, like, so really any one of those directions is all still going to come back into that final, like, there's not just one path that's going to get me to where it's okay to like meander and take different detours, and it's all going to come back. So it was like, okay, so that wasn't it. Like, I gave enough. It wasn't too much information. It was the right amount of information to see, like, look, this is kind of this could be a splintered thing, or it could be something that can come back and mesh back together.
It takes courage to entrust someone to support you with your stuff, right? And
Yeah.
then add to that somebody that you haven't met before, add to that in front of others that you haven't met yet.
And it's being recorded, and other people are going to watch this
right,
later.
I mean, my gosh, the whole thing. Right. So very well. I honor your courage. For sure.
Yeah, me too, Jen. That was you were vulnerable, and I just, that softened me and made me feel more connected to you, actually.
Jill, did you want to look like you might have a thought or two to share, and then I'll share my thoughts.
My thoughts are, of course, I'm thinking from a coaching perspective, and what I really was drawn up. Yeah, I mean, Jen as a client, like, just a dream, right? But also Chris as a coach, what really puts me in awe of your skills is what I struggle the most with, obviously, and that is being able to take everything she's throwing out there and kind of help her break it down. And I think a lot about, I have one of my sons is an engineer, and somehow, even though his engineering is like a really techie thing, it doesn't matter what kind of topic we're talking about. It could be a touchy-feely thing, and he's able to take all this and just break it down. And I feel like I operate in all of this,
Yes.
So for me to help someone else through that, it really, Val knows, she helped me coach for a year. It takes a lot of like just really, really hard focus and on that, like, break it down, break it down, break it down. And of course, the whole thing of, but Val already mentioned this, just bringing it back to the client, bringing it back to what they need. So that was super useful as a reminder to me to just help them break it down. And interesting enough, I had a really interesting experience this morning, of all days, before this. It was 2 p.m. when we started here, where my sister-in-law was texting me about some challenges she has with one of her sons right now. And her sons are the oldest is about 10 years younger than my oldest. And so usually when she comes to me with these things, I feel like she's looking for my insight and my input. And well, this is what I would do, and this is what I did, or whatever. And today I thought, I'm gonna coach instead. So I went back to her with just a texting, just a lot of open-ended questions. And it really evolved into a super interesting and useful conversation. And I thought to myself how much easier it is for me to do that texting even.
Oh.
And I'm not sure why, but I think it's because it gives me a chance to stop myself.
Mm.
You know, when I'm reading what she writes and my initial reaction is, oh, tell her this, right? And then, no, what should I ask her? And she's not looking at me and she's not watching my reactions to her. So I have those seconds to sort of really stop and just not worry about what she's thinking of me reacting to her, even though, don't get me wrong, I love like looking at people and having that interaction. But from a coaching perspective, it's like that texting thing wasn't so bad for me, you know?
Well, that's great, Jill. Before I turn over to Chris, because I know we got to wrap up here, I will say, Jill, I think you just created a wonderful niche for yourself. Like literally
Texting coach.
text. I guarantee, I think it's a great idea.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I think there are a lot of clients that would actually prefer that.
Mm-hmm. They don't
So
want to be on camera with you.
yeah, I just
Don't want to talk too much. Yeah.
it's incredible, and people can be a little bit more forthcoming, perhaps. So yeah, I of course, as always, I write a page of notes, but your comments were, clearly better than mine. So I will turn it over to Chris to pull us together.
To wrap up, good.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Your
No,
comments
no,
are
no,
so
no, no.
useful.
No, that was believe me, that was a takeaway, as well as the other comments.
Mhm. Yeah.
I always do that.
Whatever happens in these calls is always good.
These are backups in case you guys are completely silent. So trust me.
That's right. That's right. Don't worry. He'll be hitting me later with
Exactly.
what I would have done. No, just kidding.
Plus animal.
We do that to each other.
Yeah, we do.
So just as we wrap up, just a few quick things and I'll let you go. Our next webinar is going to be August 20th, and it's going to be another barrier to change. And this one is on values conflict. I love this one. Jeff has taken the lead on this one. And it'll also be at 3 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. Central, Jill, if you're still in Idaho. And Idaho. Anyway, wherever you are. So that's that. And then we're relaunching our full training program, the whole 125-hour shebang, but it just starts with individual courses. And we're doing something a little bit different, more of an immersion for most of these courses. And the next one is September 9th to 11th. So it's a Thursday to Saturday. It's like 24 hours of coaching. It's going to be, it'll be interesting because it's virtual. And so it's fundamentals, HabitChange fundamentals course. And then the following month, October 7th to 9th, and we'll get all this up on our website, is HabitChange 2, another immersion class. And then Mind, Body, Spirit, Health, which is November 4th to 6th, which will be a great kind of personal dive as you parallel your own stuff with who you coach in terms of mind, body, spirit, health. And then finally, our last course starts in December, which is coach residency. And Val can tell you all about that when you guys talk again. But that's what we connected with clients. And then as you coach clients out in the real world, and you get paid hours for doing that too, not a lot, but enough to count as paid hours, you come back together for case studies and peer supervision and all that. So the whole program really is about, I think we decided it's about 6 months long, believe it or not, which is pretty short for these kind of ICF programs. And if anyone's interested in the pricing, I can share that too. Each course is, except the first one is cheaper, it's $995 for those 3 days. And then the other ones are for $1,495. So that's it. And again, that was a lot. And I'm working this weekend on getting the descriptions together and really laying it out so we can get it on the website so people can see it.
And if you guys know anybody who is looking to do a coaching program, the thing that's so cool about this program is that when you're done this, right, let me not get this wrong. When you're done this, then you can sit for the ICF exam.
Yep.
You can go right into ICF and you can get that credential, which out in the coaching world now is a really important credential.
Yeah.
And you can
really
also
not,
do
yeah.
it, you can also then, once you get your hours, you can go up to the next level, which is PCC, which is,
Yeah, and you already have been tested at that level.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah,
kind of
it's like
getting,
built in.
it's a good thing. It makes a little more rigor, but it's a good thing in the end. You leave our program being a damn good coach. We'll make sure that happens. That's our job. And so, yeah, we'd love for you to, I mean, I know Joe, you're already trained, and Jen, you got something going on too, and obviously Val is already one of our students. But if you know anyone that are in that kind of inquiry about programs, the referral would be awesome. And you guys are always welcome to keep coming back to our monthlies. They'll always be here for you. And we're just appreciative to have you here today.
Yeah, this is great.
Thank you so much. This has been
Yeah,
thank
you.
fabulous, you guys.
Yeah. Well, take care, everybody.
Have a great weekend,
Friday.
everybody.
Bye, guys.
Nice
You
meeting
too.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.